welcome in. We have another edition of the Talkin Solutions Podcast, and today is an episode that I personally am interested in. It's a topic and a conversation that I'm looking forward to, and it has to do a little bit about human behavior. We have the co-founders of HumanMatter. Their slogan, of course, is Be Better Humans, and it's all about basically allowing yourself to have less stress and live a little bit better. And I have the two co-founders with me today. Very special guests. Very pleasure to have them here today. Behavioral scientists Katerina Bohle Carbonell and Tania Dsouza. How are you two ladies doing today?
Fantastic. We're doing fine. Great.
Awesome. Thanks so much. And I want to get started first and foremost with a little bit more kind of on the business side to kind of define what is HumanMatter, what the solution is, how it provides people to live with less stress and to be better versions of themselves a little bit. So Tania, if you can help explain just a little bit about the mission of HumanMatter and what your business is trying to accomplish in terms of helping people be better versions of themselves.
Sure, William. Thank you. So HumanMatter is basically, like the punchline says, be better humans. And our vision is basically to kind of create micro-learning moments for people so that they can each day progress a little bit more closer to being better humans. It's also about trying and understanding how our mind works, how we behave, how we interact with people, and most importantly, evaluating how we actually live. Sometimes we are so caught up in all our ambition and the responsibilities and duties that we have that we don't step back and actually see and evaluate our lives and see if you're heading towards our goal. So that's what HumanMatter is, and I think it also comes from personal stories that has been experienced by Katrina and myself, and we've collaborated together to bring science-based solutions through the right frameworks and models presented to people in a very simplistic format so that they're not overwhelmed or intimidated because it's behavioral science, and just apply it every day and be better humans.
That's great. And Tania, real quick, what is the method that you all are doing right now to educate those people? I believe it might be a newsletter. What are some things that you're doing in terms of the actions that's being taken?
So, William, it's an interesting story because we started being we basically are a lab. So it's all about experiments, and we try different experiments and see what works and what doesn't work. We started with a product, and we were excited about our product. It was called Restory. It was a goal-guided program. It ran over 30 days, and people could put in their goals, 6 different goals, both a combination of personal goals and professional goals. And we would, they would have to do daily updates and then weekly updates. And eventually, by the end of 30 days, they could see their progress. So we would do like an analysis for them, a behavioral analysis for them based on the input they provided us with. And we also presented them with a resilience score based on the algorithm, proprietary algorithm that we developed at HumanMatter Labs. But eventually we realized that there are some people who are super committed. And like I say, we can talk about our users later, but if I have to quickly say, there are two kinds, the wanters and the experimenters. The wanters, they sign up for everything and they're really excited. But somewhere down the road, they just kind of like drift off, or they are not committed enough to invest time and sort of like resources that goes into, this whole program. Whereas the experimenters are the ones who actually, they went through the program and they saw the results of it. So we said, okay, let's focus on the wanters. I mean, they want to do it, but for some reason they are not able to do it. And why is that? Is the length of the program too long? Is it too many updates that they need to put in? So we said, okay, what's the most simplest way that we could impact their lives? And after talking to a couple of them, we realized it's just as simple as a newsletter. So we started doing weekly wisdom. So weekly wisdom is every week we send out, on Tuesday primarily, we send out a small little newsletter which kind of talks about one particular topic in behavioral science. And we end it with like, say, tiny tips, what they could, take back and try and, follow through during the day. And that kind of helped. And we were getting a lot of feedback and emails back that were interesting. We also started, we kind of went one step, like we took Restory and we went one step back again. Instead of making it a 30-day program, we said, okay, let's educate the people about what it's all about, what the crux is all about, and that it basically the fundamentals are reflective journaling. That's what it is. It's where you're putting in input, you're writing daily updates, you're writing your story. So he said, okay, let's educate them and tell them the science of reflective journaling. Why does it help you? I mean, if someone's just going to tell you, okay, meditate, it's very difficult to just meditate. But if you're going to explain to them how it actually works in your mind, then I think people get a lot more interested, because they're like, okay, this is how it really works. So we did a 7-day program, a 7-day masterclass, where people get an email every day. It's a quick 3-minute, 5-minute email with the science behind it, and then with a challenge. And we found that to be a lot more effective, and people were actually completing it because it's a shorter time frame as well. So those are the two programs that are going on, which is continuous. And then we have the other ones like R Power, which is about resilience score. We have Mind Sprints, which is more like a full-fledged program, more appealing maybe to corporates. And we are currently working on something really interesting, which is work-life fit, which is basically, I know Katrina doesn't like the word, but about work-life balance. How do you manage work-life balance? So that's the current project we're working on.
Very interesting. I definitely want to hear more about how you can improve your work-life balance, despite what Katerina might think about the word and whatnot as well. But I do want to get Katerina's opinion, and you, because Tania, you mentioned a few things there that talk a little bit about the behavior and what you were learning about things on that as well. So first and foremost, I think we should just start with the question, why is it so important that people understand themselves and their behavior, Katerina, in order to make sure that they take better action? Why is that so important?
If you don't understand yourself, if you don't understand why you're acting in a certain way, you'll just keep on reacting in this way. So you are, it might work or it might not work, but there's no improvement. It's, how can I say that? If there's a door and you always kick the door open, it does work, the door opens. But over time, your foot will hurt and the door will break. So you need to understand that your reaction, or that your action has a reaction. Now, with kicking a door, it's a pretty physical activity, so it's easier to make this link between I kick the door opens, but my foot hurts. Let's not kick the door and use the handle. So that's easy. But if it comes to things like communicating or understanding your emotions, it's harder to make this link between how you feel. For example, I feel angry and therefore I do this and this, or I feel depressed and therefore I go now and smoke, or I go and eat something unhealthy. So the link is more on an unconscious level. So we need, or I think we need, as humans, we need to have ways to uncover these unconscious links between what we're doing and the reactions of them. And to do that requires time and effort on your side. And we are in a world that values productivity and going on. But what we need to do is actually to stop and think, okay, I feel restless. Why do I feel restless? And once I have the answer to that, I can make changes. But we need to take the time to do that.
Right, and I think that seems a little bit based on what Tania was saying, that's some of the struggles, that sometimes people aren't really taking the time to complete their tasks or to do things to understand it. So Katerina, why do you think that some people kind of struggle with completing tasks or things of that nature as well? Because I've seen it in my work experience and things as well, that there's always seems to be certain structures that you need to take in order to kind of fit to some people to work. So why is it for some people it's a little bit more difficult for them to go ahead and complete tasks?
I think two reasons. One, you don't have clear values. So you don't know really what you want to get out of life. So that's like, in other way, you don't have a North Star. You just keep walking. I don't know if you do sports outside, if you go hiking or sailing or whatever in nature, you can just keep on walking like that. I mean, there's nothing wrong with just keep on walking, but you never know what kind of danger is there on the way. And that's why you should have a value, let's say 1 to 5, as a North Star, and that kind of helps you to direct or to help you decide what activity you should be doing, what activity you should not be doing. For example, I was once talking with somebody who was she went to one of an elite university in the US and is now working at a health-focused startup. And she realized that living healthy is her North Star. Like she is, you could call her a health freak. So she does a lot of exercise, but she was working for a company where health wasn't that important. So the product the company was creating wasn't really about living people healthy. So that kind of made her, let's just call it, not happy with the life she was living. She looked at her values, realized being healthy is key, so therefore decided to look for a company where being healthy is a key value of the company, and the company is creating something to make people more healthy. So on one side, you need your values as a North Star. On the other side, if you look at the educational system, there is, if you went to primary school, secondary school, and so on, there's not many times where you are told to reflect and think about your decisions. I mean, there's not many times where you are allowed to make your own decisions about, yeah, today I want to study math, or no, today math, no, I don't really care about that. I rather just want to go and paint. So kids are not taught to stop and reflect. We're just taught to just keep on going. So these are my two reasons.
That's very interesting. That's fascinating, because it really is. It's just kind of keep going. There's less time, and really the way society is pushed, especially whether it's in Europe where the company is based, or whether it's in the U.S., it's just a constant kind of go mentality where it's almost just like, I don't know, blissful ignorance, if you will, or something of that nature. So that's really interesting. So Tania, you mentioned this a little bit when you were talking about kind of segmenting and breaking it down and simplifying it to just the 7-day kind of the 7-day, how do you want to call it? The 7-day kind of workshop or
Masterclass, yeah.
Yeah, masterclass. Thank you. I was lacking the word there for a minute. The 7-day masterclass, and you mentioned that. So how much of what you are learning now in this current stage and in this process of completing the tips, because I feel like for you two as well, it's not only are you helping people kind of understand themselves, but you have to also understand how people understand themselves, which is obviously Katerina's specialty as well. So Tania, what types of results and feedback have you kind of been getting from some of the customers and clients for the 7-day masterclass?
Yes, so William, like I said, we have two kind of users, so the wanderers and the experimenters. And the ones who are most engaged with us are, of course, the experimenters, and they come back with feedback in relation to, okay, they've applied this in their life, and this is what has worked out, and this is what hasn't worked out, you know. So we had one particular person who came back and said that, you know, what she really likes about the program is that even though we use technology, we use, say, email, the digital platform, she still finds it very human. Like it's like two people talking to her, you know. There was another one who kind of said that it kind of feels like a cheaper version of therapy. Like, you know, it's not that expensive because they're kind of reflecting themselves. So they are becoming self coaches. And that's actually our goal as well with the program, that we wanted people. I mean, we're not dismissing therapists, you know, that there is a place for them, definitely. But if you can self coach yourself, or, you know, try and understand yourself a little bit more, or your behaviors, and if you still struggle, then maybe go, you know, and take professional help. It's a good balance. It's a good combination, you know. So that was another good feedback. I think two of our in our weekly wisdom newsletter, two of our articles that got the most interest. One was resilience, and one was about friendships. You know, managing toxic friendships, managing friendships when you move to different places. And it was really interesting because it kind of showed that the two most important things for people in their lives right now, one is like when there's uncertainty, how to deal with that uncertainty, or when there's adversity, what a lot of people are going through right now because of maybe the pandemic, or like, say, you know, with their jobs, etc. The one superpower that they need is resilience, and that piece resonated the most. And the other thing is the social aspect. They were missing friends, and so this piece about friendships and managing relationships were equally important to people. So that kind of gave us a little bit more insights into, you know, our audience and what they're struggling with, or what resonates with them a little bit more. Yeah, and I'm thinking anything else, Katrina, that, you know,
Yeah,
that were.
maybe if I can interject, there was a lady, and I talked with her over phone, so we could go beyond just text. And she worked for a long time in the HR department of a large company. So she would be what would call like a workplace consultant or an HR business partner. partner, and she described reflection, so what we're talking about in this masterclass, as the superpower people should have in the future. So it's good to learn, it's good to have communication skills and so on. But if you cannot honestly reflect on yourself, you will be stuck. Like, you can tell yourself, I'm good at talking with my employees, I never get angry. But if you're just going to be lying to yourself. So you need to have this honesty to actually be kind of brutally honest with yourself and say, I screw up there because of this and this, and I will take these and these actions further on, or like in the future. So I found this one of the key feedbacks that we got, that it's kind of, we're giving people the superpower to be successful in their life, no matter how success looks for them.
Interesting. And Katerina, I'd be curious to see how that kind of balance works with some of those tips in terms of an individual, because you mentioned a lot about, being brutally honest with yourself and saying, hey, I messed up there. That was a mistake. I need to do this and do the better. But I do feel like for some people, it is a bit of a struggle to do that in a constructive feedback way, and that sometimes when they are too critical on themselves, it can go down as well. So what are some things that people can do that can make it so they don't kind of beat themselves up, and instead make it constructive versus kind of like, oh, that was bad, and things like that, just so it's more constructive?
Yeah. So we have one of the sessions is about emotions. And there is, so I'm just going to quickly talk about the research. There is a ton of research in the medical field on how text is used to help, or how reflection is used to help people who have, for example, cancer or are very depressed. And in this research, they are actually analyzing the words. So like any type of words, like I, me, we, identity, emotion, shit, kind of whatever you say. Every word has a marker, and then a marker, for example, is a pronoun. I is a pronoun, so it has a marker. If I only write about myself, only say I, then this is a very me-focused text, and that is related to how depressed I'm feeling. So these correlations, so how to say it differently? There's a relationship between how I write and how I feel. We can use text to see what gender you are. We can use text, so we can take your blog post, and what researcher or data scientists, they can take your blog post and say, you are a male, you are heterosexual, and so on. So we can say a lot, and this is the ethics side, because it's the ethics side, I'm not going to go into this because that's going to derail the subject. So the research then looked at the text and then decided, okay, if people write these types of text, they're feeling less depressed. And one key criteria, or actually two main criteria, are the emotions that you're using and how certain you are about why you're feeling in a certain way. So people who always write about, oh, I did this wrong and now I'm again screwed up and so on, because it's only negative emotions, there's no progress. They remain depressed, or they remain in a low mental state. People who move from negative emotions to positive emotions, their health is improving. So it's normal that, let's say, when something bad happens, that you write down, oh, I did something wrong, I did a mistake. But you have to turn this mistake into, for example, I did a mistake, but now I know that blah, 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 and next time I will do it better. So that you can see there's a sequence from feeling bad about something to feeling good because you learned something. So the emotions is the one key, moving from negative to positive emotions. And then in our course, in our masterclass, we actually tell people to look at what they write and to underline their emotions and kind of see for yourself using, a simple highlighter. Are you moving from negative to positive emotion? The other marker is how certain you are. So for example, you could say, I messed up and I think it is because I didn't have the right information, but I'm not sure. So that text shows a lot of, unclarity, or we call it tentative thinking. You think you know why you did something bad, but you're not really sure. So you're still always looking at the past. You're kind of still figuring this out. And that language, again, needs to be moving to the future. So you need to say something like, I did something bad, and it was because I misunderstood how to run the query, and then I read about how to use SQL, and now I know how to do this better. So there's this sequence of it. So to answer your question in a short way, when you're writing about something, look at your emotions, move from negative to positive, and look at how you're describing it. Are you unsure or are you sure?
Fascinating, because to me that's also like a big understanding of being aware of language as well. Like it's really important is being, like you had mentioned, the I, the we, the she, the he, whatever, and then turning it. I think of, I'm a sports guy myself, big basketball guy. Michael Jordan, he always would say, always turn a negative situation into a positive. And I think that's basically kind of what you said is when you're writing it down, and obviously you have to say, hey, it's negative, but think as well, being aware, how can you turn it into a positive? So I think that that's really fascinating, especially the part with the language and just how you craft things on that front as well. So it's makes it a little bit more tangible. So great answer there. I learned a lot right there just of myself. So Tania, I want to move a little bit back into kind of the business stuff as well, because one thing that you had mentioned that y'all are working on that's pretty big and something that I've seen on a recent version of your website as well, and that kind of ties into that resilience and relationships thing, I think perfectly, is that work-life balance. So if you could talk to us a little bit about what you're working on in there and what your plans are for that, because I think personally, the resilience of kind of going through tough times, which is generally through work and stuff, and then the support that you get with your friends. And I think there's a TED Talk that I saw, there's a Harvard study that says relationships are the key to happiness. The strength of your relationships over the course of life is literally linked to how happy you are. So I would be really curious to see what you're working on with that work-life balance.
So with the work-life fit, we still don't know what we're going to call it, to be really honest, because it's a work in progress. But for now, if I have to say, give it a word, I would call it a modus operandi. So you have a lot of books on work-life balance, and it's text. You read, and then you forget. That's what happens generally. At that minute you're excited. Yeah, this is what I'm going to do. But we want to be like, okay, this is the problem. People are reading stuff. They know they got to do this. They know they need to have the not work-life balance, the work-life fit, as Katerina says, but they're not doing it. And why are they not doing it? Because there is no daily checkpoints. There is no accountability. There is no there are no challenges put out for them that they, it's kind of like a little homework. If teachers don't give students homework, are you only reading? You read in the class and then you forget. You don't actually go home and actually practice it and do it, and then you don't know how to do it, right? So what we're trying to do is it's like an MVP now in that sense that we want to give people, okay, we're going to give you the context, we're going to give you the information, okay? But along with information, we're also we're going to add another bit where you're going to practice reflective journaling, but specifically for work-life balance. So the prompts are reflective journaling is a lot about having the right prompts. So these prompts will be designed particularly asking you questions every day to reflect on, okay, your life. And also along with that, we're going to give them a lot of resources and different frameworks and models that they can apply themselves to have a better work-life fit. Because what happens with work life is that your work and your life is very different from my work and my life and versus Katrina's. Some people have kids, some people don't have kids, some people are single, some people are married. There are so many different aspects. And when people write a book, it's just a generic advice. It's not personalized. And the personalization can come only by the individual. I cannot tell you how to lead your life, nor can you tell me the same. The only way you can do it is I can give you the resources and tools and frameworks, and then you can design or adapt, rather. It's a better word. You can adapt those frameworks to your life and then do these small little experiments. And we constantly say this at HumanMatter is that we want people to start thinking like scientists. The problem with the world today is people define, this obsession with success. They think, okay, I want to get this magic bullet. I want to know the solution, and I want to apply it in my life, and everything needs to be happy. It's not going to be that way. So the only way you can do it is you can do these small experiments, try these different challenges every day, and see how it worked. Okay, it didn't work. Okay, let me try this way. Okay, it didn't work. So you go with these. That's why we call it micro learning moments. They're like little moments in your life that you do every day, and you become a little scientist for your own life, and then you're not disappointed. A scientist is never disappointed when a result is not achieved, because they know, okay, that's not the way to do it. Now I'm going to figure out another way to do it, So we're kind of making you like human scientists in simple terms. So that's what work-life fit is all about. It's like a modus operandi. We give you the tools, we give you the frameworks, we give you the content as well, which you can read. We give different media, so there would be a little bit of video, maybe text, multi-video sort of format, and then people, take these tools and then they apply it. And there's also an opportunity for them, like with these little workshops that would probably be included 4 times a year, where they can come and discuss these, not what they've written, not their work and life, but what worked and what didn't work in terms of the strategy, in terms of the framework. So there's a little bit of like community spirit there involved, a little bit of accountability there involved, which makes people feel, okay, I'm not in this alone, there are other people too.
I love
So
it.
yeah, so that's
Yeah, I think that's I love the way you described that as well. It's just kind of like being your own scientist, being your own kind of behavioral analyst, if you will, and just really kind of going through it, that because you're attacking, instead of, when you talk about the books and the generic books, I mean, obviously they're helpful. I mean, they do provide a framework in a degree, right? But they don't address everyone's individual situation. Somebody might think, oh, if I follow these, it's going to be great. Yeah, except there's this factor, this factor, this factor, this factor that is only specific to my life. And instead of like, in a day in the world of marketing where, what's a good example? I don't know. Make $10,000 in 3 months in your drop shipping store, and then people don't make $10,000 in 3 months in their drop shipping store, and they think, oh, I suck, I failed. But it's a different situation. So I think attacking at that root of the problem and making them learn and becoming their own scientists is a really great way to frame it as well. Katerina, I'd be interested in and would like you to maybe expand a little bit too on the importance of just kind of hounding it in. Like, people might hear homework and people might hear, oh, I don't want to do all this, I don't want to do all that. It's a lot of steps, it's a lot of work. Like, I clocked out of my 9 to 5. I just want to turn on Netflix and relax and just kind of ignore that problem as well. Why is reinforcing content so important in our ability to learn, not only about different types of topics, but obviously about ourselves as well? Why is it that there is so much reinforcement, and how is that positive, and why people should look at that in a more optimistic way?
Mm-hmm. Before I answer that, I need to make a comment, because I think Tania never saw a PhD who had insignificant results in her test. That's one of the, they're absolutely depressed sort of scientists. You also learn kind of, okay, having a p-value of 10% isn't that bad, and you learn to be less disappointed at insignificant results. So you asked, why is it important to kind of reinforce the content and to just keep on going?
Yeah, just how to do that, and how can people look at it in a more positive way, right? Because obviously we're taught when you're a kid, you get homework, and every kid's like, oh, I hate homework, like, oh, I don't like homework, and then you get done with homework, you're like, yes, I get just 9 to 5, I don't have to do anything. But how can people look at it as a more positive way, that reinforcing things is a great thing, and there's an absolute reason for it, for your own better well-being?
Mm-hmm. It's if you do nothing, you get nothing. I keep on telling that to my kids every day nearly. So if you don't want to put in the work to get a better work-life balance, which includes reading content, thinking about yourself, well, then you don't get a better work-life balance. But that's a choice that you made. Or I would say, well, that's a choice that you made. You want to watch Netflix, fine, your choice, your life, but don't complain to me. If you want to have a better work-life balance, you need to put in the work. There's no magic. Currently, there's no magic bullet for it. Of course, we could hope for society to change, all the companies moving to a 4-day work week, but that will not happen tomorrow. That might hopefully happen in 20, 40 years. By then, so that's the point. The main thing is that if you want to achieve it, you need to do something. Why reinforce content? Because we forget. There's a recency bias, for example, that information that you hear recently is at the forefront of your mind. Or if I see an accident today at one corner of the street and see an accident tomorrow at the same corner of the street, I will assume that this corner is a very dangerous corner just because I saw 2 accidents in a row, completely forgetting that I passed by the street, let's say 100 times, and never saw anything. So we need to reinforce content to just be remembered. So that's one part of learning. It's just reading up on stuff, or the acquiring frameworks. The other part is the experience. So you need to do stuff and try it out. As Tanya said, you need to just see what works for you. And then you need to do it with the reflection. You need to think about, well, what did I just do? What worked? What didn't work? And then you need to make the strategy for next time. So there are learning frameworks that explain these concepts of reflection and making strategies and so on.
And just to add to Katerina, I mean, the question you asked was very relevant, and actually it applies to me as well, because, I talk about all of this, but like you said, it's so easy to go and turn on Netflix and just watch something, than put in that work of, say, for example, journaling every day, taking that time out, and that's why we're very conscious right now when we're designing our solutions, that they've got to be micro moments. They have to be small, 5 minutes, not more than that. So let it be, it's not a 400-page book. This is the difference between like a 250-page book versus, something like, oh my God, you buy all these books, self-help books, and how many times have we actually finished reading the entire book, right? So instead we're like, okay, let's summarize the content. It's more like Cliff Notes. Let's not make it like heavy with like jargons. Let's simplify it. And the challenges are just 5 minutes. It doesn't take more than 5 minutes, And then people are like, okay, I can dedicate 5 minutes. That's okay, And then eventually it becomes a habit, and then you actually miss not doing it, So that's that's how we want to design even work-life fit to be. We slowly start with like these mini challenges, and then get you to run the marathon eventually, So yeah.
Yeah, that's perfect. The micro challenge is 5 minutes a day, and then you just do it for 21, 28 days. I think it's what they say is when something becomes a habit, and that's when you start going, oh no, I didn't do that today.
Like I started something very similar just to experiment with myself. I had a very bad habit of, looking at my phone first thing in the morning, and then, it's bombarded with all these messages and emails and answering. So I started this 30-day no phone sunrise challenge, and for 30 days, and I would put it on Twitter out so that there's some sort of accountability as well. And I would write a small little poem at the end of the day. So at least it helped. It's not a poem, but just like my morning thoughts, I did it for actually 30 days. And now I don't have that urge for my phone. So the first 2 hours in the morning, I don't touch my phone. And it's just made me so much more calmer and so much more productive and efficient. I mean, earlier I always thought that, okay, I have a newborn. I need to see my emails right in the morning so that, but actually, no, I still am able to do the same amount of work, not seeing my phone first thing in the morning, and I'm still productive, so it's these small little habits. Yeah. I initially said only 30 days. I didn't do it like, for the rest of my life, I'm not going to see my phone. I didn't do that, because then it's very difficult. Then you can't do it, so yeah.
Right, and I think that goes back to the core root of it, is understanding yourself. What is a sufficient challenge that you can do? For you, it might be 30 days. For somebody else, it might be, hey, I'm going to do this for 3 and then 7. And I love that that's what you have on the micro side of things, or just 5-minute tasks. One thing you said from a business perspective that I would be interested to learn more about, and in terms of the behavior and how people want to learn, and from a marketing perspective as well, is you mentioned that you offer different types of content, whether it be text or graphics or video as well. Have you been able to learn a little bit about what type of content that you're sending out there is getting kind of the most engagement from the audience and things of that nature, like how people are digesting it the most tangibly yet, or is it still a little too soon to figure that?
It's a little too soon to talk about which kind of content is most appealing to people, or which medium. Twitter, to be honest, is I think most of our audience comes from Twitter, because I think we're both most active on Twitter. But we're trying different sources, and right now, thanks for the opportunity with your podcast as well, to reach out as many people. But when it comes to once people come to the site, what engages them the most, I think it's the theme. And like I said, the 2 themes that had a lot of engagement, a lot of interest, one was relationships. We had one on love relationships as well, which got a lot of interest on Twitter, and managing like love relationships, And then there was the friendships and resilience. So I think it's more like theme based, and sometimes some particular topics we don't get the response we expect to get. Like there was one on growth mindset about like learning to learn, and there wasn't too much of response there, or too much of engagement there, So I think it depends on the theme, and I think what people are currently going through at that particular moment, and if it resonates, that's what they pick up on, and then they come back, or they engage, or they send us an email back saying that it helped them, it didn't help them, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Interesting. So how do you kind of anticipate how things could kind of grow into the future there? Because I've kind of heard, within that, I was like, oh, okay, well, maybe you can start to segment, and once, the product grows and the business grows, you can have different segments, like, hey, these people want growth, these mindset, these people want love, these people want work relationships, these people want work-life balance, these people want, addiction, whatever it might be. So what is a little bit of kind of your long-term or the future for HumanMatter Labs?
For HumanMatter, I mean, now again, I think like this is where like I think I get really excited about product, and I'm like from day one I'm like, oh, we have to build this and we have to build that, because I come from that background. Whereas Katerina has to calm me down, like, no, let's start with newsletters, then let's start with like a toolkit, and then baby steps. So if you ask me for the big picture, what we would love actually for HumanMatter is that to build a micro learning platform where people can learn, like you said, people can pick and choose. It's like a menu card, and then they can pick what they want. Do they want to learn about relationships? Do they want to learn about work-life fit? Do they want to learn about different areas of their life, basically their daily life? And again, it's only like 5 minutes information coming in, like bite-sized information, right? But at the same time, there's also a space for reflective journaling where the whole process is automated, where instead of a person taking a highlighter and marking, okay, the positive words, the negative words, and analyzing where it could be a little biased, with the help of hopefully a proficient technologist, we are able to automate that process. And where we are able to give them real-time analysis about their feelings, their behaviors. I mean, and it's not something that we can do because we've done that earlier. We've done it manually for people with handbooks, and Katrina and me created these handbooks, analyzed the data, and provided it to people, and they found it immensely useful. I mean, our users were so happy with the handbooks. But the problem is that we can't create 100, 200 handbooks. Or say 1 million handbooks by ourselves. This is where I think right now we're just two of us, and we're trying to make a difference in this small space. But to really create an impact, we need resources, and to get those certain resources, we need to deliver, and we need to see what has actually worked and what has not worked. And right now we're in that process of experimenting and seeing what actually build something which actually has that impact in people's lives by doing it manually currently, and then eventually automating it. I mean, it's kind of like the Airbnb story, right? Like initially they started very small by going and clicking pictures themselves and doing everything manually, and then eventually they created the platform, and it's a lot more automated right now. So that's the vision from the product side for HumanMatter. But the core crux, whatever the product is, whatever the solution is, I think the main essence is that we just want people to live better lives. Your lives are short. You need to reflect and not just let life happen to you, So you need to have some control, make better decisions, so that when you're on that deathbed, you don't regret. You feel like, okay, you know what? I made considered choices, and it was worth it. Yeah. So
maybe to add to that, there's a lot of science on how to live. It's very, you can read up on whatever you want, brain activity, relationships, friendships, how to communicate with your spouse, how to communicate with your kids, and so on. But it's all written for scientists. So scientists write for scientists. And then on top of, let's just say it like that. It's a bit more complex, but this is a good simplification of the topic. On top of that, a lot of research is behind a paywall. So you need to pay $20 to read an article. The only thing before you buy, you get like 5 lines of an academic abstract, which is normally very condensed. And based on these 5 lines or 250 words normally, you decide, do I want to spend $20 on it, yes or no? And I, as an academic, I often read abstract. I thought, oh, this is interesting. I click, I have access to the articles thanks to my affiliation. And then I read it and I say, oh, this is actually useless. But I can do this and I don't have to spend money because the university spends the money for it, but you will have to pay the $20. So what HumanMatter does with this micro-learning platform is also making science accessible to everybody. There's all these frameworks out there that could help you make a better life. But first, you need to find them, then you need to understand the scientific article with all its jargon, and then you need to apply it to your life. So we are doing the first two steps. We're doing that for you. We're finding it and we're simplifying it. You're still going to have to do the application to your life. That we can't. We can't force you to do that. That's your own free choice.
Right. That's the own choice, which is always, I think, kind of an interesting thing as well, because, you know, and I don't want to go too much into this about society in general with it's particularly younger generations and things of that nature as well. But it is very much an instant society, instant gratification. And, you know, things like life require a lot of work. So I think the micro learning and things like that is really helpful as well. But Katerina, I'd be curious to get, you know, your professional opinion on where you see the future of behavioral science going, because, you know, for me as somebody who's more just, I don't know the word to call it, like a fan or someone who's really interested in it, I feel like, you know, within the last, 70, 60 years or so, behavioral science has really started to grow and take off. I mean, I can think back in 70s with the FBI and the behavioral science units in the US. And then obviously mental health now is very important for people. It's very important for them to talk about. You know, when I was growing up a little bit, like if going to therapy, or you wouldn't want to tell anybody you were going to therapy or something because it was bad or, you know, taboo, whatever. And now it's much more encouraged and open. So Katerina, where do you kind of see the growth of behavioral science and things of that nature as well, and the willingness of the general person as well to just kind of be open to actually understanding their feelings? Because like you two touched on earlier, you know, back in, you know, not too long ago, a few decades ago, you know, my dad's generation, I can think of as well, was just, you just work and you do it and you go and you don't really take any time to consider how you actually feel. Nowadays, that's changed. So what's your kind of professional take on just the growth and the progression of behavioral science and mental health and all that within the recent years, and where you see it going in the future, Katerina?
Mm-hmm. So what you see among scientists is a greater collaboration between disciplines. So you see economists working together with psychologists, or psychologists working together with neuroscientists. And this collaboration is important because if you're talking about behavioral science, it's trying to explain human behavior, which is not just psychology. It's psychology together with the humanities. It's all these different disciplines together that you need them to work together in order to make science that is applicable to human beings. You can't just only look at one single thing. Of course, it helps to start small, but at the end of the day, we need to consider all the different aspects. So that's one movement we have. I think on the order, like parallel to that, maybe a bit behind, or a bit, you know, let's just say parallel to that, we have people who are more willing to say, no, I don't want to live like my parents. I want to be kind of maybe more freer, more, I don't know if this would be more individualistic, but in a sense, I don't want to give my whole life to work. There's a greater realization that life isn't just working, and that life isn't just living. Let's say you can't just not work. So you have work, life, but you also have your family, you have your friends, you have your own health, and there's a realization on a societal level that you need all these different areas to work together. Like it is okay to work, like kind of to focus on work for some time, but if you only focus on work, this has negative consequences. And I think it just took some time, like if we consider the industrial revolution, and since then it just took some time for people to realize how that type of working impacts the other areas of life, and we're now entering a stage where people are saying, well, no, I don't want this. I'm going to do something else. I'm going to design my life in a different way.
I think it goes back to what Tania said as well about when you're old and, you know, if you have the luxury of being able to reflect on your life, you know, you want the ability to, I mean, I'm sure it's impossible to eliminate all regrets, right? But you want the possibility to look back on your life and say, I made the best choice in that moment, and I tried the things that I wanted to try. I gave it all out there, and, you know, that's I could be happy for, versus, you know, I think in the past there was a lot of just give yourself to work the whole time. And, you know, I mean, I think there's a reason why when you ask elderly people what their biggest regret is I wish I didn't work too much. I don't think I've ever heard anybody say, I wish I would have worked more, you know, like, so it's interesting. I want to hear go ahead, Katerina, if you had a thought on that.
One thing to that. I think we actually are in a privileged position to actually think about what type of life we want to say. We have our basic needs are met. We are not, I am assuming now we all have a bed, we have a blanket, and we have food in our fridge. So we have our mental powers. We can devote them to other questions instead of just, oh, what I'm going to feed my kids today. We can say, well, how can I make my kids happy today? How can I be happy today? So just putting out there that we are in a privileged position, and just because we are able to do this doesn't mean that everybody else is able to do this.
No, but the hope is one day that they will. You know, I know from what I've read and everything, and I could be wrong, but from what I've read, you know, the poverty is decreasing still at a rate that's never been seen before, and all that good stuff. So we certainly hope that, you know, one day people will have the opportunity to do so. But you're certainly right, certainly in a privileged position here. So speaking of being in a position, I'd like to hear a little bit about your backgrounds and why you two both decided to come together and join to create this type of business. Where did the interest arise, and kind of a little bit of a background story here. And I'll let you start with that, Tania.
So yeah, ours is a little bit, as we say, it's like an unplanned encounter. So a little bit about our serendipitous story. My background has been, I've done my MSc and my MBA both in fashion retail, and which means a lot of consumer behavior. And my MSc dissertation was about trying and understanding bridal buyer behavior, which is very emotion driven, by the way. So I've always been interested in behavior, but more from a business perspective, right? Like, why do people buy, and why do they buy this versus that? And that was always interesting. I've worked in different industries, tech, events, fashion, design, luxury, you know, and I worked very closely with like startup founders. But the one thing that interested me is beyond just like how well they run their company was like, what were their behaviors with their, say, employees or in their own lives that actually impacted their business. And I always found it intriguing to see how one of my clients would be able to tackle the same problem in a different way versus another client. And it just because of behaviors or their outlook towards life or how they manage their relationships. And so that was kind of interesting. But from a personal point, things were going really well. But 2019, I think I reached that point where I was like, oh my God, like anxiety, like, you know, what am I doing in my life and where is this going? That kind of thing. I took some time off, rekindled my life with behavioral science, but this time more about reflecting and reevaluating the choices I made. And that's when I was reading a book, The Undoing Project by Daniel Kahneman and Ostrovsky. It's about their relationship, the two behavioral scientists. And I was like, you know what, I have this idea. I want to help people. I want to solve modern day problems, you know, what happens in our lives. And I want to do this based in behavioral science, like something which is science-based. I mean, there's a lot of stuff out there, you know, you have like yogis giving their idea about how to live a life. You have meditation gurus. I'm like, okay, it's nice and it's good to take what they have, but it's also good to, you know, get a scientific angle to this. And I was like, okay, it would be so great if I found my own Daniel Kahneman or like my own little behavioral scientist who I could partner with, you know, because I knew I was limited in, just like you, I'm interested in this, but I don't know the science behind it. And I don't want to go out there and tell people, oh yeah, you know, I'm an expert, because I'm not. And then what happened was the pandemic happened and I was bored and I was itching like always, because that's me. I have the new shiny thing syndrome. I constantly need to do things. So I signed up for a hackathon, and it was a virtual hackathon. It was, I think, trying to solve a problem during the pandemic, which is isolation for remote workers. And that's how Katerina and myself met, because we were in the same team. They kind of like, they put you in teams, you know, and we worked on a product to beat isolation for remote workers. We were one of the finalists. We came second. It was well received. And a couple of weeks later, I connected with Katerina and I said, hey, listen, you know, I had a great time working with you. This is an idea I have. I want to build this lab. Would you be interested in partnering? And I think being a scientist, she was excited because she had all this knowledge. And, you know, academia is so restrictive in what you can do and what you can't. And this was an outlet for her to get a lot more creative. So after a lot of virtual coffees, some whiteboarding and some robust conversations, and, you know, I think we decided, okay, let's give it a shot, like an experiment. Let's look at it as a project more than a business, because then you're like more like, okay, you know, You're able, you don't feel so intimidated by the whole thing. And it's been more than a year and a half. It's nearly a year and a half now, I think. We haven't met ever, even though we were in Ireland. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, even though we were both based, like I was in Dublin and she was in Galway at that point, and we've never met, but we've still survived each other. So yeah, rather she survived me in my quirks. Yeah.
Is that true, Katerina? Is it more of that to her or what?
Sorry?
I said, is that true? Are you having to put up with her a little bit?
Sometimes, yeah, she gets too excited and adds too many colors on it, which in academia you get the feedback, this is too colorful, and every color needs to have a meaning. So why did you have this in yellow and this in pink? And why is today the newsletter all formatted in green and then last week it was in blue? Can you please explain your reasoning? Yeah, so, no, but she's great to work with. And at the beginning, we had a conversation we often had is what is actually behavioral science? Because I come from we approach it from different angles, and so we needed to actually sit down and decide together what is behavioral science, and we kind of decided that it's this big thing that has economics in it and psychology and cognitive science and everything together. Tania mentioned that during the pandemic she was bored, and that's why she joined the hackathon. I joined the hackathon for a completely different reason. For sure, I was not bored. I'm a single mom of 4. I don't need to do other things. So I joined the hackathon because it was virtual. So therefore, I could simply go and attend. I didn't need to look for, a babysitter or arrange anything on the back end for me. I could just log in and go there. So without the pandemic, we would have never met, and we would not be here right now. So something good comes out of everything.
There you go, putting a positive spin on a very negative situation. That's beautiful. That's fantastic. Before I let you all go, I just want to give you the opportunity to please share some ways, some information or anything that people listening can do to support you. Or obviously, I think I encourage everybody to sign up for HumanMatter so that you can actually start to learn yourself via the micro-learning and all that type of good stuff. But how are some ways people can support you going forward?
Okay, do you want me to take it? All right. So I think, like you mentioned, Will, I think the best way to reach out to us is going to our website, HumanMatter.com, and there's a little, what do you call it, the dash between human and matter. So we can share the details with you. You have the website details, so maybe you can put it in the transcript down. And sign up to weekly wisdom, because that's where you're going to get, it's free. So you get like micro-learning, insights into behavioral science every week. We have the free masterclass, which is a 7-day masterclass in reflective journaling called Restory, which again you can sign up for. And then, of course, once we launch, if you sign up to the email or the masterclass, when we launched Work Life Fit, you'll be the first to know. So you'll have early access to it. So that's something that we're excited about. And I think you can always follow us on Twitter, which is HumanMatter Labs. And we're most active there. So, you have any questions, you want to reach out to us, you want to partner with us, we're always looking to collaborate with people. So, just reach out to us. We don't bite. Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe to add to that, what is a problem? What is a behavioral problem you like to solve? So we write on topics that we find interesting, but that's us. And of course, we're doing research on the web to see what other problems people have. But if you currently have a burning question about your life that you want to be solved, you want to know what's the mental model or the framework you should apply to solve that problem, reach out to us, and we look at what the scientists say, and we kind of condense it for you and tell you what to do, and then you do it.
Wonderful. Fantastic. Yes, that's humanmatter.com. You can go there. It's human- with the hyphen mattr.com. And then, of course, as Tanya said, we're going to have all of the links and whatnot on our link tree and whatnot throughout the week of the episode as well. So you can easily find all those links available there. But ladies, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I really appreciate it. Your project is something that I find fascinating and really interesting. I'm a huge proponent that if people focus on improving themselves each and every day, the rest of some of the things in society will go to take care of themselves a bit as long as people are just trying to become better versions of themselves all the time. And I think that's exactly what this platform does. And I'm super excited to continue to follow along with it and whatnot. And I hope that down the line, the product evolves as well. Be happy to have a conversation with that. I want to hear more all about it. So thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, William, for the opportunity. It was fantastic. Yeah, it was great. It was just great doing this here together.
Awesome. That is HumanMatter Labs. HumanMatter, that's right. They are making you better humans. Be better humans is their motto, and it's a wonderful and fantastic approach to take to your life, to take just little micro steps that can improve it going forward so far. So a special thanks to the co-founders, behavioral scientist Katerina Bohle Carbonell, and then, of course, Tania Dsouza as well. So that's going to wrap up this edition of the Talkin Solutions podcast. Like I mentioned before, all of those links are going to be available. I highly encourage you to check it out and to sign up for the weekly newsletter and the 7-day Masterclass. And then, of course, stay up to date about the new work-life balance project that's coming out as well. So thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your week. World.